I ended up getting pregnant when I was 13 with my son. And I was still in foster care at the time. And I ended up, it was a whole fiasco. My boyfriend at the time, my son's dad, he ended up robbing a store and doing all this shit because he thought he was in high school, had a kid on the way. I guess he was going crazy. He didn't know. And this was a nice little country boy when I met him. And I guess after a while he wasn't, and his family, I think, kind of blamed me or something because I was this kind of city girl that was, you know, too fast for him, for their nice little country boy. And I ended up moving to Jackson, Michigan when I had my son. His dad got out of, he ended up getting caught for robbing the store, and he got out of juvie at the time because he was only 17 maybe when he did it. And he got out like a month before I had my son, and so I had my son. I'm still in my same foster home, but my foster mom, she ended up, things were okay there at first. Things were, they were okay. And then I think she got really angry at me for being pregnant when I was 13. She couldn't have kids of her own. And she started not starving me, but really restricting my food. Like, you know, you can only have 1 egg and 1 hash brown for breakfast. Like, that's it. You know, there's one sandwich with only so many pieces of meat for lunch. Like, that's all you get. And I'm like, I'm pregnant right now. I'm hungry. Like, it was messed up. So I didn't get out of there until about a month after I had my son. Oh, because she also used me as, like, she wanted me to do all the housework, all the cleaning and cooking, and like, I just had a baby. Like, you really want me in here, you know, cooking and washing dishes and doing mopping and all this? I can't. So my foster mom, I guess she was just, that's what I think happened. I think she was mad at me for having kids when she couldn't. And so now me and my boyfriend, and we got a kid, and now we're on our own, and we're like adults now. Yeah, sure, fuck it. I've been making all my own decisions my entire life. Like, this is not a big deal. It's really not. And at the time, my son, he's small, and I know I'm supposed to hold him. It's crazy. Like, I read this book called What to Expect the First Year. It's what you read, like, when you're gonna have a kid, to know, like, what's going on with them the first year of their life, so you can recognize, like, any kind of illnesses or just anything, you know, and their developmental milestones, so you can keep track of it and you know what's going on with your kids. So I read that book, and that was like the only guidance I had to being a parent. Like, I didn't know anything else besides what was in this book. But I knew, like, you know, I'm supposed to hold him and love him. And so I do that, and I'm breastfeeding him, and I'm trying to be the best mother possible at 14, 15, but I have all this anger and trauma. And sometimes I had this problem with, like, being touched, like, affectionately. Like, no one had ever really touched me affectionately, like, in a safe way. You know, my mom, she really didn't hug me or, you know, kiss me on the forehead, pat me on the back. What the fuck you do with a kid? My mom didn't do that. And no one did that when I was in foster care either. But I know I'm supposed to hug my son and hold him and love him, so that's what I do. But sometimes it's too hard. I couldn't stand for him to touch me. My skin would crawl. And I didn't want that to happen. So I kept holding him. And at the same time, my boyfriend at the time, gosh, we had sex all the time, but I couldn't hold his hand. I couldn't be affectionate with him. I couldn't be nice. He's like, I never met somebody that wants to have sex so much but doesn't want any kind of affection. And when I was like 14 and 15, I didn't know why I was like that. I didn't know what was wrong with me. But I couldn't stop being angry. I had all this hate from my father, and it was weighing me down all the time. It was so heavy. And after some time, maybe when I was around 15, I realized that it was too heavy for me to carry around. I had to let it go. Like, he was still controlling me. I hadn't seen this man, since I was 10 years old, and somehow he was still running my thoughts every single day. I'm like, how do you let somebody do that to you when you haven't even, they're controlling you and you haven't even seen him? So I'm like, I gotta stop. I have to stop this. So I guess it had to do with the control. I always wanted to be in control of everything around me. I wanted to call the shots, and I felt like my dad was calling the shots when he was always in my head. And so that made me drop it really quick. I'm like, yeah, no, he's not going to control me anymore. So I let go of that part, of the trauma. I stopped hating him just because it was so damn heavy. And when my son was around 4, that was when I started to spank him. And I thought that because I wasn't beating him, like breaking his bones, I wasn't sexually abusing him. I'm like, yeah, spanking's okay. You can spank a kid when they need to get spanked. And so, like, once in a while, he would get, a little smack on his butt for something. And then by the time he was like 6, maybe, because the first time I spanked him, he was 4. And then by the time he was like 6, there was a moment where I kind of lost control. He got in trouble at school. And he came home, and I'm questioning him, like, why did you do this, or why did you do that? And I slap his face because he's not answering me. And this is the first time I put my hands on his face, or, didn't just try to give him what I thought at the time was just like, a little spanking, because I felt like, I don't know how to discipline kids, but this doesn't seem that bad. And plus, I'm not a man. I would not allow his father to ever touch him, because I was like, no, you're too strong, your hands are too big, and no, like, if he's gonna be punished, I'll spank him. And so that's how I was. And then this one incident, I don't know what happened. I started slapping him and slapping his face and asking him why he did something, and I was slapping him over and over, and his face was getting redder and redder. And he's like, Mom, you're gonna kill me. And I was like, oh my God. Okay, all right. Oh, okay. I need to get a hold of myself, like right now. Right fucking now. And I looked at his little face and how red it was and how sad he looked. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like, my dad, I can't do this. I have to stop. I have to figure this shit out. I gotta figure it out, because I cannot be like him. I can't lose control. I'm not gonna be angry. And I'm not gonna hurt my kids. So after that, I never hit him in his face again. And if he got a spanking, it was like once a year. Like, it had to be something like, I was, just something where I was like, okay, maybe that's maybe you need a spanking. And at that time, I still thought it was okay. like I'm doing okay. And so I start, my relationship with his father was pretty bad. I ended up having a daughter with him when I was 19. And there was always a play for power in our relationship, the dynamics. He figured out really quickly that he couldn't, he wasn't gonna hit me. When we were kids, we got into like a couple fist fights, but we were kids when that happened. And there was like 3 incidents where there was physical violence between me and my son's father. And then it didn't happen anymore. So he had to figure out other ways to try to control me, because I wasn't gonna ever cower in front of any physical violence, so that was not gonna work. And so he would use my kids and money to control me. And if my kids needed anything, I'd have to do something for him, some kind of sexual, whatever he could think of. I had to do it for him. If I wanted money because the kids needed coats or clothes, or we needed food in the house, I had to do something for him first. And when I was 22, almost 23. My daughter was 3 and my son was 8. And I started to realize that I need to be a better mother. And I'm never going to be a better mother if I'm with their father. I'm never going to heal myself. I'm never going to be happy. And I need to get my shit together, because these kids mean everything to me. They're my only family. I don't have anybody else. There's no one else besides them. And so I gotta get it together for them. And when I left him, my son was 8. He didn't know anything about my son. Like, he didn't know the names of his teachers, his friends. He didn't know his favorite color. Like, my son had this nickname, a baby name, that he didn't want to be called anymore. He just wanted to be called his birth name. And his dad would always call him that. And I would see the hurt on my son's face anytime his dad called him that. And he'd say, "Don't call me that, call me this." And it was just kind of like his dad didn't know anything about him, and it hurt me. It hurt me that his dad was so damn absent in his life. And I made a decision. I was like, I felt like having no father was better than one that was there but just absent as shit, And so I made that decision. And my daughter at the time, she was 3 and she was a daddy's little girl. But she was 3, so I didn't feel like she had a say in the matter. It was more about how I was feeling, how my son was feeling, and we're getting out of here. So when I left him, I had this 99 red Dodge Durango, and I packed it up full of their clothes and all their toys. And I was going to school full time at the time. I was a pre-med student. I was going to be a doctor, because I said after all this time I had never let my schoolwork slip, and I was, avid reader. I was kind of always found a way to, I guess, lose myself academically, so I didn't have to pay attention to anything else about myself or in my life or you know, the depression, suicidal tendencies. I remember swallowing a bottle of pills at one of my foster homes. But that was a long time ago. I felt like I had come a long way since then, but I was starting to feel like that again. So I was like, we gotta go. So I packed up the truck, packed up my kids, and well, I don't have any family. I don't have anybody. So where am I gonna go? What am I gonna do? I'm this foster kid that slipped through the cracks. So who do you call? I called, I didn't, at that time, I didn't know where my mom was. She was off in the wind. She was moving around, you know, from state to state, Florida to New York. Like, what the fuck is my mom doing in New York City? Like, she's from the country. She was just everywhere. She was all over the place. My mom wasn't stable. And I didn't really talk to her. We were still trying to mend our relationship. I wasn't as angry at her anymore. I had learned a lot of her story and realized what had happened to her. And so I came to understand that, you know, she couldn't have been there for me. Nobody was ever there for her. So, and no one taught her how to be there. Like, things need to be taught. You have to pass things down. And if you can't just expect somebody to know something because they're out here living in the world and they're just supposed to pick it up. You know, you have to learn things. You have to be taught. We're all on these different paths, and you know, some people, they have a nice walk on a sidewalk, and then maybe a puddle they got to jump over, and a hill, and then they're there to the destination. And then some people, they have nothing but mountains with oceans in between on their path. And then they finally get to where you're at, and you wonder where the fuck they've been. But you didn't see everything they had to go through just to be as average as you, to be as normal as you. And it's not only that, it's not just the path. It's, you know, we all have these tools that we start out with, or that we're given, or that we acquire along the way. And I viewed my mother as weak because I felt like she didn't have the same, because she didn't stand up. But I had to learn what my mom had been through. I had to learn her path, and I had to learn the tools that she was given to understand, you know, why I went through what I went through. I had to understand her life. And in part, you know, I had to understand my father's as well. And at that point, when I was deciding that I need to do better, and I need to leave this man, I need to leave my husband, I need to leave the father of my kids, my mom was on the part of her path where she still didn't know what was going on with her. Like, she didn't even understand her own trauma. So I left him. I didn't have anybody to call, so I called my middle sister. And she lived in Ann Arbor at the time. She had just graduated from U of M, and she had came to live with me and my husband a couple times. And so I felt like it was, and we had gotten close during those times, so I felt like it was okay for me to reach out and ask her. I was like, hey, you know, I'm leaving him. Can me and the kids come stay with you while we get on our feet? And she said no, and she suggested that I call a homeless shelter. And so I said, okay, that's what I'll do. I'll call a homeless shelter. And so I'm in college. I think I'm taking like 18 credits. I'm going full time. You know, I want to be a doctor. That's what I want to do. I was always that kid that was so smart, and everybody's like, you know, they're going to be a doctor or they're going to be a lawyer. You know what I mean? That's what you tell the smartest kid. And so that's what I thought I was going to do. And so I have my kids, and we're at this homeless shelter, and I'm trying to do it. Like, I'm in school. I'm still going full time. I'm taking my kids to school and picking them up after I get out of school, and you know, and then I'm trying to get us out of this shelter. So I'm working this third shift job at 7-Eleven. And like, I realized pretty quickly that that's not going to get us out of the homeless shelter. Like, you need support, you need family. And this was a shelter where they actually only allow you to stay a month. But I guess they took pity on me because they knew I like had no one. Like, I have no support system. What do you want me to do? Like, we're either going to be here or we're going to be sleeping in our car. And so when I was with my husband all those years, I had been completely monogamous with him. There was a lot of infidelity on his side, but you know, when I was with him, even after everything he did, I was still so in love with him. I actually had to force myself to fall out of love with him the last year that we were together, because I had left him once before when I was 17, 18, but I ended up going back to him, and that's when I got pregnant with my daughter. And so the last time when I left, I wanted to make sure I didn't go back. So I just spent like the last year just like pushing him out of my heart. Like, anytime he did anything that was gonna make me happy or smile or anything, I would think of something bad he did to me. And so I just, you know, just kept pushing him away and pushing him away. And then when I finally left him, I was like, yeah, I'm not going back. So I made sure I did that before I left. And it had been about 4 months after I left him since I hadn't had sex with anybody else. And I always had a high sex drive, extremely high. And, you know, so I started sleeping around while I'm like in school, homeless, got my kids, and I'm working in this full-time third shift 7-Eleven job. And I would just walk up to anybody and be like, you wanna fuck? Like, no finesse, nothing. Like, I don't want your phone number. I don't give a shit about who you are, your name, anything. Would you like to have sex with me? Yeah, can I get your number? No, right now. Like, do you want to go right now? And I never got turned down. Of course, I mean. And so that was like that lasted for maybe like, I don't know, a couple months for sure. And then I was at school one day, and I'm still in the homeless shelter at this point, and like we're there like 6 months, and I'm like, okay, I feel like we're about to overstay our welcome, and they're gonna ask us to leave. And I still don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm going to school, and I have a job, and yeah, this 7-Eleven money is not gonna get us anywhere. And I have no one to call. I have no one to ask for help. I remember a couple weeks after I had left my kid's father, I was on the side of the road, like the car had ran out of gas, and I'm just like, just shit out of luck. Like, what are you gonna do? You're homeless, you have kids, you have no money, you have nobody to ask. Calling around, like I called my sister because she lives in the same town. Because I knew I wanted to be in Ann Arbor. Like, I had to be in Ann Arbor because all the homes in different cities I moved around to when I was in foster care, I saw the education systems. And I was like, they're different. They're different everywhere you go, depending on, you know, a lot of it has to do with money. And basically, I just wanted my kids to be in Ann Arbor and get an Ann Arbor education. That's what I wanted. And so I was like, I'm staying in Ann Arbor. I don't care if I could drive somewhere else and it might be easier to get on my feet. That's not what's happening. I have these kids, and we are here in Ann Arbor because I want them to go to Ann Arbor public schools. I want them to have a good start because I knew that education was important. And good education is important. I was, anyways, it just sucked. I was poor, I was homeless, I had 2 kids, and I didn't have any help. I had no support. So one day I was at school. Oh, and I was wild. I would even meet people at school. I would like, come out to the parking lot with me real quick. You want to fuck? I didn't know what was going on. So I met this guy one day at school in college. I had seen him in the library. I was like, damn, he looks fine as hell. Let me go talk to him. And so he gets up to leave, and I'm like on this, the second floor. It looks down into the library. It's still part of the library. And I see him walking, leaving out, and he's going towards the stairwell. So I'm like dashing to the stairwell. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute, what's your name? And so he tells me his name, and I'm like, I think I said, do you want to have sex or you want to fuck? I said something like that, and he was the first one. Like, some guys were kind of taken aback by it. They're like, what? Like, they think I'm playing a joke on them. And I'm like, no, fuck it. I don't know what was wrong with me. I'm just really horny. So I asked him that, and like we're talking in the stairwell, and he's asking me some questions about myself. And he was like, I told him I was homeless because he wanted to know. And like all throughout my life, anytime anybody ever asked me a question, I was always really straight up with them. Like, I told them what it was. Like, you're going to be in my life or you're not, but this is what it is if you're going to be here. And he was like, well, if that's what's going on with you and you're out here giving it away for free, you might as well get paid for it. I'm like, well, shit, I never heard a better idea in my life. Like, I'm fucking homeless and I got 2 kids. Let's go sell some pussy then. Like, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, you know, at first, yeah, I'm going to say I was 100% on board, like, right away. He convinced me there in the stairwell. I'd never even heard about prostitution, really. Like, I didn't know anything about it. Besides, I had a little brush with it. While I was in that shelter, one of the jobs I ended up getting was at a bar. And I was only there for 3 days. You don't want to see me in a bar. I don't know how to work in a bar. It was a hot mess, okay? Like, I'd never been around alcohol, really, and too much, except when I was a kid. I was drinking when I was a kid from like, 9 to 13, but after that, I really didn't touch alcohol anymore. So this was my like first time being around alcohol again, and my boss had told me, yeah, if someone wants to buy you a shot, have them buy you the most expensive shot. And I was like, okay. And so my first couple nights, like 3 nights, people are buying me shots like all night long, and I'm getting drunker and drunker, and I start dropping my tabs everywhere. And my boss is like pissed. He's like, what's going on? I remember one time he came to talk to me, and I just dropped all of them, and they were all disordered right in front of him. And I told him, you wanted me to take these shots. Like, what do you expect? He was like, you're supposed to tell the bartender it's for you, and they're supposed to fill it up with water. I'm like, well, fuck, I didn't know that. How am I supposed to know that? I never worked at a bar before. I didn't know I was supposed to take shots of water. Like, you got to tell me these things. The bar owner, I guess, had his eye on me. And I stopped coming in after that because I was like, you know what? This is not for me. This is not the environment I need to be in. I was like, I'm not mentally, I've always been spontaneous, really spontaneous, and like have this I don't give a fuck attitude, but I've tried to stay away from things that would encourage that attitude in me. So I'm like, this is not the environment for me to be in. I'm trying to be in school. I have these kids, you know the story. And so my boss calls me like a couple days, and he's like, the owner of the bar calls me a couple days, and he's like, why haven't you been in for your shift? I told him, I was like, yeah, I don't think it's gonna work out. And he's like, aren't you homeless? Because that was how I got the job. I'm like, I'm homeless, give me a job. And so we ended up talking on the phone, and he says he can help me out with some money. And so I ended up meeting him at a hotel by the Detroit Metro Airport, and him and his friend, I ended up meeting his friend. This is the worst. They gave me $100 for two of them. And I was like, but I didn't know. I had never prostituted before. Like, how much does pussy cost? I don't know. Like, don't ask me. I never sold it. So they gave me $100. But when they gave me the $100 and there had been two of them, I'm like, I'm pissed. Because I don't know how much pussy costs, but I know it costs more than $100. Like, this is some bullshit. But, you know, they both had, their penises were like this. So it wasn't that big of a deal. You know, I would have been pissed if they, you know, had really beat me up for it. But I mean, both of them came in like 20 seconds. You know, it wasn't that bad, but I was still pissed. I was like, this ain't right. So I had that little brush with prostitution that happened to me. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. And yeah, I didn't know what to do. So when I met my pimp in that stairwell, and he told me, and like he sounded like he knew what to do. So I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Like I want to get out of this shelter. I want to get my kids, you know, in an apartment. I want us to have our own stuff. And so people might wonder, like, you know, how does it happen? I remember so that weekend he had me go with him to this house party. And no, I met him at a hotel first before the house party, and we had sex. And he was like, wow, you really set the bar high. And then we went to this house party, and he had me, at the end of the party, he had me, he said, pick out 4 guys that you liked around here at the party. And so I walk around, look around, and I'm like, I pick out 4 guys. And we ended up going back to one of their places. And they're all sitting around taking shots and drinking, and I already know that's not for me. Because I said it before, I'm like, yeah, not for me, out of control. And so, out of control because I ended up fucking a regular in the bathroom at that bar. So this, I'm only there 3 days. And I don't know how to waitress, I don't know how to do anything, I know how to fuck. Fuck a regular and like on my shift, during my shift. And then I had another, this was a small bar too, so if you're fucking the regulars, it gets really small really quick, you know. And so I fucked another regular like after my shift on that same day. And then like the next day, that other regular I had fucked in the bathroom is like grabbing at me. And then there's this other guy I'd been talking to like around the corner. I'm trying to make sure he doesn't see this other guy grabbing at me. It was a hot mess. So anyways, I knew to say no to alcohol. I'm like, no, absolutely not. And so these guys are sitting around taking shots. They asked me if I want to drink. I don't know what's going to happen, really. I guess I got a clue, maybe, but I don't know. So, and they're like asking me if I want to drink, and I'm like, no, absolutely not. And we ended up going to the bedroom, and so I started having sex with these guys, like one after the other. And then at the end, it's my pimp and one other guy, and then at the end, it's just my pimp, and it's going on for a couple hours. And I guess that's how you get, like, I guess that's how he broke me in. You know, how you get broken in and ready for the streets. And because that was a Friday night, and then by the Saturday night, we're downtown Detroit, and he's taking me to the MGM. And he had me dress up all cute, you know, put on these heels. I'd never worn heels before. I don't know what the hell I'm doing in heels. And I'm trying to be beautiful in this casino and attract men and talk to men and find these clients. And at the same time, you know, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with my life. I'm in school. I'm going to be a doctor. I have kids. I'm trying to be a better mother. At this point, my son is 8, my daughter's 3. I've never laid a hand on my daughter. And my son I try really hard not to spank him. So like I said, it only happens like once a year. Or if I can think back to it, maybe twice a year. So I'm getting a hold on my anger as well. But there's something still inside of me. I guess I turned it inward. And I felt like I became even more self-destructive. I had been self-destructive my entire life with all the anger and all the situations I got myself into. But I felt like this was even more self-destructive. But at the same time, I didn't have another answer about what I was supposed to do to get us out of this homeless shelter. I didn't have any family. I didn't have anybody to call. Like, what do you do? And so I start working at the MGM and Greektown and Motor City here in Detroit. And I'm walking around for like 12 hours a night in 5-inch heels and little dresses. And I'm picking up these strangers, going up to their rooms with them. Or there was this, down the street from Motor City, there is this a motel where you can rent a room for, I think it's an hour or 2 hours, for $30. I could take a trick there for $30. And like, I mean, you know, you can take people in and out of there all night. So I do that. And I would go home in the morning, because now this is my new third shift job. Fuck 7-Eleven, you know. And then after maybe like 2 or 3 weeks, I had us out of there. We had an apartment, and we had a couch. We didn't have a TV, but you know, we had things now. We have our own stuff, and nobody can take it from me. And so I'm working third shift all the time, third shift prostitute. And I'm still trying to treat it like a job. Like, I got to get home on time. I gotta take my kids to school. I got to go to school myself. And after school, I get out of school. I have to pick up my kids from school, and then I'm a pre-med student, so I have lots of homework, like a lot. And it's like, you got to study, you got to do your homework, you got to take care of the kids, you know, do the laundry, run errands. And after a while, after a couple of years, I think it was maybe two years of that, I couldn't do it anymore. Like, I was exhausted. I was so tired. And sometimes bad stuff would happen to me while I was working downtown in Detroit. You know, some people, when they pay to have sex with you, they think that they own you, and they try to treat you like that. But I've never been, like I said, after my father, nobody's gonna hurt me and get away with it. So, you know, I remember I had this one client, he kept biting me and biting my face, and he was doing it like a joke, like joking around. And he was on top of me, and I'm like, you gotta stop biting my face. And he did it one more time, and he did it really hard. He ended up leaving a mark on my cheek. But, you know, I just went nuts. I started hitting him. I ended up breaking his nose. I bit a hole in his face. It's not funny, but that's what happened. And there's just a lot of stuff like that where somebody would try to do something to me, but I just couldn't let it happen. Like, I got to get home to my kids. This is what I have to do. And so, I mean, if you want to learn how to be a hoe, you're going to learn really fast in Detroit. You really are. My pimp would take me around to bars. I would just, you know, walk into bars, try to pick up clients. And when you do that kind of work, it's, you know, you got to have confidence. You got to be able to talk to somebody and I guess it helps to be beautiful. And I was lonely and I was alone. And me and my pimp, besides that first time, you know, at the hotel and then at his friend's house, we didn't have sex. He brought me into his family. He had me meet his mom, you know, cook dinner with her. One time I dyed her hair, you know, I met his sister. He brought me into his family and treated me like family, and that's how he kept me under his thumb. That's how he kept me handing my money over to him, because he did things for me that, you know, I didn't get from my own family. I remember our first Christmas in that apartment. We didn't have anything, and there was a charity, and they ended up giving us like a tree and like some household stuff. But it was my pimp that brought over all the kids, the kids' toys, like a bunch of toys for my kids, and brought over stuff for them. It was probably my damn money, but you know what I mean? He acted like he cared. And that was hard for me to see who he really was and how he was with me, because I was so stuck on that somebody was finally acting like they cared about me. Because when I had been with my first husband, his family disliked me. They never welcomed me into the family. I was somehow always the bad guy for something. So he never stood up for me. And I was like a, you know, outcast in their family. So this was the first time that someone's treating me like family. And I thought I loved him because of that. And I can't say what kind of love it was, because it wasn't sexual and it wasn't like a brother. It was, I don't know, I thought he loved me and I thought I loved him. And then I was really lonely still. Like I wanted somebody to, at that point I had gotten better at hugging my kids and touching them and letting them touch me, and it was almost natural at that time. And so, and I had been letting go of my anger. I'd been talking to my sisters and just seeing them once in a while, trying to like reestablish that relationship, because I really wanted my sisters. Like I really wanted family. And I wanted something else. I guess I still wanted somebody else to love me. Like I wanted a man to love me. So I had a client, met him at the casino. He was a millionaire. He invented some chip for NASA, something like that. And I was gonna marry him. And we weren't in love. I think I was just happy somebody wanted me. He was old. I was like 20, 23, 24. And this guy was like 65 at the time. I would date somebody 65 now, definitely, but not when I was in my early 20s, for sure not. Wouldn't have anything in common. So I called my old pimp and I told him what was happening. You know, he wanted to know where I disappeared to and everything. And I was like, I got married, didn't work out, and I guess I'm back on the street. And he was like, well, I'm in Atlanta. Why don't you come down here? And I'm like, oh shit. So my plan is like, I'm just gonna make a shitload of money. I ended up taking my kids to Mexico because my mom had moved down to Mexico at that time. And I asked her, like, can you please watch my kids for me? Because I have nowhere to go. You know, I have no money. And my mom, she lives in a developing part of Mexico. Developing means third world country. So that's not anywhere for us to go either. Like, people are trying to get out of there and come here. So I'm just like, can you just watch these kids? And she agrees to watch them for the summer. And I'm like, I'm just gonna be like a super hoe for the summer and hoe as much as I can and make all this money. And then by the time the summer is over, I should have enough money for an apartment and stuff for the apartment, you know, and clothes and stuff for my kids. You know, and they're going to be starting school. They need school supplies. I'm thinking about all that stuff. So I go and I take my kids to Mexico. And I meet my pimp in Atlanta, Georgia. And right away, our relationship is different. Like, I guess he's pissed that I disappeared. And before, when I was working with him in Detroit, at the end of the night, I would just give him half of my money. Like, he didn't take it from me. He let me pull it out and give him half, and I got to keep the other half. So I could take care of, you know, whatever I had to take care of. And then when I met him down in Atlanta, he wanted all the money right away at the end of the night. And he was setting me up on Backpage, and I hadn't really heard about Backpage then, but he showed me Backpage, and he's making ads for me and having me do these poses, and it was trashy. It was trashy as fuck. The kind of clothes he wanted me to put on, the shoes, the everything, and he wanted me to charge like $100 per client, and it was just. One of the he put me in this Baymont and it had roaches. And I'm like, I'm never gonna make any money like this. Like, what the And so it's like maybe 2 or 3 weeks of handing my money over to him, and he's working me to death. Like, he's answering the phone, he's calling, like, all my clients talk to him, he sends my clients into the room, and I'm at the point where my pussy is so sore from being overworked. Like, it's all red and swollen. I end up going to the ER because I'm like, there's something wrong here. And nothing was wrong. I was just really, really, really sore from having way too much sex and I guess not nearly enough lube. And so, you know, my pimp is mad that I took a day off to go to the ER, and he's mad in the evening. He's coming to the hotel room and like, you know, what's going on with you? And at the time I had my own car, and so that's how I'd gotten to the ER and then got back to my room. And he's not having it. He's telling me I have to work. He's got a funnel. He's putting this funnel in my pussy and pouring lube down it. He's like, you're gonna work. And at this time, when I met him in Atlanta, I was also 3 weeks post-abortion because I had been pregnant with my second husband, and I got an abortion the week I left him. And I was telling my pimp, you know, he kept rushing me to get to Atlanta, and I kept telling him I can't. Like, I just had an abortion. Like, I have to, you know, you're supposed to wait like 6 weeks or something before you even have sex. And here I am 3 weeks in, but at the same time, I'm like, I gotta get my shit together for my kids. Like, you know, they need stuff. We need an apartment, we need somewhere to live, they need school clothes, school's starting. And we're going to Ann Arbor, and it's expensive to live in Ann Arbor, but that's where we're going. And after that, he's like, he takes my car keys, he's always waiting outside the room, like he's making sure that I'm taking clients and I'm not going anywhere. I'm like, this shit's different. And then he has another girl working, I don't know, across town in another place, and he's got some trouble with her. I end up getting my keys from him and leaving when he goes and checks on this other girl. And so I leave, but I don't, where am I gonna go? I'm still, like, we don't have anywhere to live. I can't go to Mexico and pick up my kids because I'm gonna pick them up with no money. And so I end up going, went to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I made really good money there. And more money than I made with him. And I took new pictures of myself and posted my own ads, and I was like, this fucker doesn't even know what he's doing with me. Like, what an idiot. And, but I still want my money. And honestly still love him. Like, he's there, I guess, trying to help me. No one else is helping me. I asked other people for help, my sister, and she doesn't want to help. So I end up coming back from Chattanooga, and I go back and see him in Atlanta. He wants to know. I guess I was throwing a temper tantrum. That's what I was doing. He wanted to know where I was at, and I was like, look, I went to Chattanooga, and look at all this money I made. I made a shit ton of money. And after that, his eyes really, and just a couple days after that, I'm like, yeah, this isn't gonna work out. This is gonna work out. He put me back in a shitty room and seeing all these clients, and like, he didn't know how to take care of me. He didn't know what he was doing anymore. He was traveling around with this other pimp, and I think he was taking notes from him or something like that. And it just wasn't gonna work out. As long as he was treating me nice, I guess I would have stayed. But he started to treat me shitty, and I'm never gonna stand for it. Not after my father. And so, I end up telling him I want my money. And at this point, he traveled back up to Michigan, and he's like, oh, okay, I got your money, fine, you can have it. Like, I'm just stupid, I guess, at the time. And I meet him at this Red Roof to go get my money from him, because I'm like, I still need that. And I think it's like July 24th at this time. So I got like a little over a month before I need to have my shit together, get my kids. And when I show up to the motel, he had some people waiting for me, and I end up getting jumped. And my whole face is messed up at this point. And at that time, like, as a prostitute, I had learned, do not get your face fucked up. Like, anything else can get fucked up. So at that time, with all my clients, I had learned a lot of de-escalation skills, is what I call them. I can tell, you learn how to read people. You learn how to read when somebody's agitated or, in a certain kind of mood, and you try to do what you can to, to calm them down and make sure things go nicely so everybody has a good time. And so he fucked my face up, facial fractures. Like, I remember, like, doctors telling me, you can't sneeze, don't suck, don't drink out of a straw. Just so many things you can't move with your face or do. So I'm like, definitely not sucking a dick, for one. So not working. My face is messed up, can't use my mouth. And so I lay low in Ann Arbor at an old college friend's house for like maybe 2.5 weeks until my face is better. And then I get my ass back down to Atlanta because there was good money down there. And my pimp had already showed me what to do, like how to get the money, and I already figured out how to do it better than him. So I'm like, let me go make some money real quick. I'm gonna go get my kids, and I'll go back to Ann Arbor, and I'll figure it out from there. And so I went and picked up my kids, went back to Ann Arbor. I got us together, and things are hard at this point. Like, I have bad credit, and nobody's willing to give me anything, like even a bank account or a cell phone. I can't get anything. And I'm working third shift again, but I'm going down to Atlanta once a month because I end up getting some really good clients down there, like some regulars. And then I end up meeting up with some even older friends from like a past life that I had. And I start moving, I start picking up packages for them and taking them down to Atlanta every time I go, once a month for 7 years. So every time I make a trip down to Atlanta, I make some good money for taking this package down there. And then I also make really good money from my clients. And then I come home and I start treating the prostitution in Ann Arbor kind of like a 9 to 5. Like, my kids go to school, and I go prostitute until it's time to pick them up, and I set my hours. Like on my ad, I'm like, you know, no appointments after 5 p.m. unless you call me and let me know before 5 p.m. because I'm gonna be at home with my kids making dinner. Like, you think I'm gonna be, you know, I got a life, man. And so, and then it really turns out to be more like a 9 to 3 job because I like to pick my kids up from school. So if you don't see me before 3, I'm sorry. So I get it like that, where all my clients are like, you know, during the day, I'm like this daytime hoe, and I'm like, it's working out. And then I go to Atlanta down there once a month, and I'm trying to figure some shit out. Like, but at the same time, I feel, you know, I feel trapped. I feel so goddamn trapped because how am I gonna get out of this? What am I gonna do? I have no plan. I have no way out, and I have no help. I have no family. There's no one to call. You know, after I learned about my mom and my dad and their family, it's like I can't ask their family for anything because it's going back into the lion's den. I don't want to deal with any of those people. You know, my grandfather, he touched me. He touched my mom, molested her, but he touched me when I was a kid too. He ended up raping his sister at a family reunion. When he was 45, he raped his youngest sister, who was 20 at the time. He had 23 siblings. And she killed herself 2 weeks later after he raped her. My grandfather just got out of prison a year ago. My mother's father, he got out of prison for a year ago after serving a couple of years for molesting a 9-year-old little girl that was associated with the family. And this is not just my mom's father, though. It's like my whole family. Aunts, uncles, they're, you know, there's always something, and I'm like, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm trying to do better. I just want to do better. Just please let me do better, but I'm trapped. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I have these kids, and all the time I'm trying to do better for my kids. I'm trying to let go of like all this emotional trauma that I'm holding on to because I really want to be for them like who I needed. But I never found an answer. I didn't for a really long time, and then I try to give them everything, like, you know, whatever I needed. I tried to talk to them all the time, but trauma is it's more than just being what you see on the outside and it being generational and the effects that happen that you can see. It's in your blood and it's in your brain. It's epigenetics. I was reading this book and they were talking about the children of Holocaust survivors and all the problems that they had, medical issues and heart issues and their levels of depression that they dealt with, and because trauma is passed down. Like even if your kids didn't really go through it, or they didn't go through something that was as bad as you did, it still really, you know, affects people. It's a sickness that we have to stop, and I tried so hard to stop it, you know, with my own children, with my family. So when my kids, I don't know, by the time my son was 12, like I hadn't spanked him anymore again or anything like that, I was like, you know what, hitting's not good. I'm not gonna, you know, no, I'm not doing that. It's wrong. I'm gonna find other ways to talk to my kids and be there and figure out what's going on, you know, when they do have problems. You know, give them guidance instead of what I thought was discipline. And I tried to instill the things in them that I had to build up within myself, like, you know, the self-discipline, self-confidence, the self-reliance, self-control. I knew that my kids needed those things as well. But the life I had given them with the moving around and spanking my son when he was younger, I can say right now that neither of my kids are okay. I would like to think that they're okay because I feel like I'm finally almost okay, but my kids are not. They're estranged from me. My son's birthday is today. He's 20. I kicked him out when he was 18 years old. And this was hard for me because he was my, I just have my son and my daughter. Like, that's it. So for me to have to tell my son, you have to leave this house, it was hard. But my son, he was getting older. His voice was getting deeper. During the pandemic, it was just me and him. We had disagreements, and he started to yell at me and raise his voice. And when he started to yell at me, I couldn't handle it. There's a lot that I have worked through and that I've let go of, but being yelled at, especially with a man's voice, I can't handle it. And I didn't know what I was going to do to my own son, but I knew that when that happens, when I get yelled at, it's like I'm a different person. And so it was maybe a couple days of it. And then I told my son, I was like, I'm going to have to, you can go live with your father, who he had no relationship with, or I was like, you can live with your grandma, which was his dad's mom. And he chose to go live with his dad's mom. And I chose to do that because I felt like I knew he was going to be angry with me for making him leave, but I felt like it was going to, after so long, he might get over it. He might work through it. But had he stayed and continued to yell at me, the damage probably would have been irreparable. And I didn't want that to happen. So I didn't abandon him. Like, I kept, I put my debit card on his phone, so his Apple Pay was my debit card. I still picked him up and took him to work every day, and then took him back to his grandma's house, after work. I was there. I didn't abandon him, but he feels like I did. And maybe in a way, I did. Because I did have to save myself at that point. I guess that's something I haven't worked through. I can't be yelled at. And then my daughter, we're estranged as well, because my trauma, even though she didn't experience it or anything like it, it still touched her. I made it a point not to lay my hands on her at all. When she was younger, my son, he was mad. He was like, why doesn't she ever get spanked or get in trouble? And I was like, are you being serious right now? And so I grabbed my daughter and I start spanking her. And my son starts crying and I'm crying immediately, and my daughter's obviously crying. We're all crying, and I'm like, that's why I don't spank her. You see what happened to you, happened to me, and happened to her. Like, we're all angry. Like, I can't. Like, she's just a precious little girl, and I would look at her and think about myself as a little girl, and I'm like, I don't know. I had this view of men. Like, I thought my son was stronger. You know what I mean? Being an escort really changed me, because I could say, there's hoe money and then there's escort money. When people pay me to be an escort, they talk to me for hours and hours and hours. And what I grew to learn about men is that they're just like us. As a woman, I thought they were strong. They're tough. You look up to them. They're unbreakable. But then as an escort, sitting with them for years and years, over a decade of talking to them, hours, I learned that they're just people. They're just like us. And I guess I had to learn that about my own son too, so I shouldn't have spanked him either, because he was just a person. That didn't make it any better because he was a boy, and it didn't make it any better that it was coming from a woman. So I guess escorting made me a better mother. But my daughter, she She's 15 now, and I haven't talked to her in 2 years. She lived with me until she was 13, and then her dad started to like really get his shit together. And because he had went to prison for a time after I left him for a distribution of cocaine. And then he was in prison, and then, you know, trying to get on his feet and become a better man. Now he's got, you know, a house and a company. He's doing good, and my daughter decided to go live with him at the beginning of the pandemic. And she hasn't talked to me in 2 years because she says that she got molested. When I dropped her off in Mexico, I thought she was going to be safe with my mom. But I don't know why I thought that, because my mom couldn't keep me safe and she didn't keep herself safe. But so my mom's husband at the time ended up molesting my daughter. And my daughter is angry at me for that, the same way I was angry at my own mother. And so I get it. I understand why both of my kids are angry at me, and I understand why they're not okay. And I try to stop the cycle of abuse, and I hope that someday, you know, my son is going to forgive me and my daughter is going to forgive me, and they're going to remember all the things that I tried to teach them, you know, and pass down to them, so that, you know, they can really stop the cycle. And so it just takes time and you actually putting in the work and doing the work. You know, I had to teach myself how to forgive my mother, my sisters, you know, my father. I had to learn how to do those things. You know, for my mother, I had to learn how to forgive her, because despite everything that happened, I still loved her, and I wanted to love her freely without any resentment or residual anger there. And so I think it's important to be kind to people and to forgive, because if you can do that for other people, it makes it easier to do that for yourself. And then once you're able to do that for yourself, then you can give it to the world. And I think that's what we need most, and what's most important.
All right, Dream. Thank you so much for the long story. That was interesting as can be.